103 Examination of Conscience. Presence of God, O Lord, cast a ray of light on my soul, so that I may be able to see myself as you see me, and as you judge me. Meditation. 1. To ensure an orderly and progressive growth in the spiritual life, we must know ourselves. We have to consider our sins, our weak points, our evil tendencies, as well as the progress we have already made, the favorable results we have attained, and our inclinations to good. This knowledge of our interior state is obtained through the examination of conscience. The exam considered in this way becomes one of the most important exercises of the spiritual life, since its object is to help the soul to rid itself of everything that might obstruct or delay its journey to God, and to stimulate it to quicken its pace toward Him. Just as we cannot wage war with an unknown enemy, or make conquest of an unknown region, in the same way it is impossible to fight the evil in ourselves if we have not previously identified it. We can never attain sanctity if we have not looked for an efficacious means of acquiring it. In other words, the examination of conscience attains its end when the soul, who has faithfully practiced this exercise, can say to itself, "These are the inclinations which I must watch more carefully to avoid falling into sin. These, the weak points which I must strengthen. These are the virtues that I must practice most of all." In this way the soul will be able to formulate practical, firm resolutions which will then become the special subject of its subsequent examinations. It is clear that we must first recognize and combat any tendencies which could lead us to mortal sin, but then, those that could bring us to venial sin, or to simple voluntary imperfections, must be similarly treated. Everything that constitutes a deliberate fault must be progressively and energetically rooted out of the soul which aspires to divine union. 2. Instead of trying to seek out all the faults it has committed, the soul living an interior life, one we assume to be free by now from mortal sin, should fix its attention on the degree to which its faults have been voluntary, even in the case of slight imperfections, because it is these deliberate faults that present the greatest obstacle to spiritual progress and to union with God. The soul must carefully investigate the cause of and the motive for these failures. It must realize that while its exterior faults are of various kinds, faults against charity, for example, or patience, or obedience, or sincerity, all of them, nevertheless, have one and the same cause, one common root, which may be, for example, pride or sloth. It is precisely against this root of our sins and imperfections that we must direct our efforts, not simply to lessen it by mortification, but rather to fight it directly by the increase of the opposite virtues in ourselves. In other words, we must struggle against our dominant passion or fault. This is very important, for by aiming to destroy the evil at its root, we eliminate at the same time many actual faults. When the soul has reached the point where it no longer has to reproach itself for deliberate faults and imperfections, it should turn its attention to those failures of surprise or inadvertence from which it has not yet succeeded in freeing itself, in spite of its sincere and often renewed resolutions. In these cases the soul, besides continuing the struggle against the root of its faults, will find it very useful to continually reinforce its firm purpose to overcome self. The more determined the soul is to correct its faults, the less voluntary will those be which escape it. They grow slighter and slighter, and are often only the residue, or the purely natural movement of habits once contracted, but now detested. Another important point that must not be overlooked in the examination of conscience is the remembrance of our duty to sustain and guard the desire for sanctity, and to enliven our determination to do always what is most pleasing to God. Here is the heart of the spiritual life, of generosity. It is also an excellent method to examine ourselves from God's point of view instead of our own, to ask ourselves if God is pleased with us and how He will judge our conduct. Colloquy. O God of my soul, what am I in your presence? Have my acts ever been free from faults, my words, my will? But you, O Lord, are good, and your right hand is merciful. O Physician of my soul, show me the fruits of my avowal. I confess, because the admission of my miseries awakens my heart, and keeps it from slumber. But even while saying I am incapable of doing good, my soul awakes again in the love of your mercy, and the sweetness of your grace, by which every sick soul feels strong, and becomes aware of its weakness. I shall love you, O Lord, and return thanks to you, and exalt your name, because you have pardoned so many of my guilty acts. If my sins have melted away like ice, it is the work of your grace and mercy. All the evil that I have not committed was likewise the work of your grace. Was there any sin that I could not have committed, I, who have loved evil with so light a heart? I confess that all my sins have been forgiven, both those that I committed as well as those that, with your help, I did not commit. St. Augustine. O my God, you who by one single act of your will created light, and light was made, speak again your all-powerful creative word, fiat lux, and light will be created in my soul, and in your light I shall be able to see myself as I really am in your sight. But light is not enough for me, who am so weak and cowardly. I need strength, O Lord. I need a strong, resolute will to hate evil in all its forms, to have a horror of my self-love, my pride, my sloth, to renew and strengthen my resolution, to overcome myself for love of you. Yes, Lord, with your help I wish to conquer myself, not for the vain satisfaction of thinking that I am doing better, but solely to give you pleasure, to avoid even the smallest thing that displeases you, to grow in your love, to enter into closer union with you. O my God, infinite perfection, envelop and penetrate my soul with the reflection of your holiness, and just as the sun illumines, purifies, and makes the earth fruitful with its rays, illumine, purify, and sanctify my whole being. Teach me to look at myself with your eyes, to know myself as you know me, to consider my miseries in the light of your infinite perfections, to open my soul to your purifying, sanctifying light,